Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Sorry it's a bit late. Just got off work, starting a new job on Monday, so everything's still a bit crazy getting all that set up. So I haven't looked at any of the sync sketch links yet, so you guys will be seeing my initial reactions. But since we're already a little bit late, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Screen share one. Hey, Robert. How you doing? Hey, Soybean. The one and only Quasney. Filippo, hello. It is the Daniel. I'm a little bit late, Kenny, but I just got off work, so. Darn it. But I need to feed my children, Kenny. I need that pay. Oh, wait, you are my child. Never mind. You can go without food. Alright, let's take a look. I'm going to start with Michael first. Then I'm going to go with Sanjana, and then I'm going to go with Kane. So that's the order we're going to go in today. So.
That's right. I killed your master. With your own sword, no less. And now I'm gonna kill you too.
So last week we looked at the last half. This week we're going to look at the first half. So just giving Michael notes. Let me go over his notes that he said real quick. He says... Okay, so base body notes and acting. So
That's right. I killed your master. With your own sword, no less. And now I'm gonna kill you too. That's right. That's right. I killed your master. With your own sword, no less. With your own sword, no less. And now I'm gonna kill you too.
So basically what I'm seeing here that I would like you to change with the acting choices is that you're almost hitting an acting beat for everything she says. So it's like...
That's right.
So it's like, that's right. Laugh. So it's like, gesture, that's right. Laugh, another gesture.
I killed you.
I killed your master, that's another gesture.
With your own sword,
with your own sword over here, nonetheless over here. So you're almost doing an action for every single sentence word that you're saying. I would really like to get some contrast. And so what I'm suggesting here is...
That's right. I killed your master.
I like that that's right. Like the laugh. I think that's good, but since you're doing that much action in that section, I would like to really tone down the second part.
With your own sword, no less. And now I'm gonna kill you too. Your master. With your own sword, no less.
I'm wondering if she can go like, I killed your master. With your own sword, no less. Like, keep the body, hold that pose. You're changing your poses so much, it's getting a bit distracting at the end. I would like to really make it a much more subtle right before she pulls out the sword. That way it's contrasting, right? So you've got like motion, she laughs, she's being broad, she goes into being more subtle, more holding a pose, and then she rips the sword out, right? So you add more contrast, because if she's moving a bunch before that, it kind of takes away from her yanking that sword out.
I killed your master. With your own sword, no less. And I killed your master. With your own sword.
So I would like maybe shoot some more reference for this. Maybe if you can get the person in your reference to shoot again or something. I would try to keep the first bit relatively the same, but once you get into the part of I killed your master, try to make it much more subtle, much more contained, and just hold that until she pulls the sword out. That way you're really going to contrast, because I think that would really up this performance and make her seem more seductive / evil Because right now everything is just really broad and she's just moving around a lot, and I'd like to tone that down before she pulls out the sword.
Master, with your own sword, no less. And now I'm gonna kill you too. And now I'm gonna kill you too.
And then to get into posing, I like what she has in the reference here where her head is tilted up. That's a much more sleek, suave, evil kind of a head pose, as opposed to this where it's more down and to the right. I would try to get her head more up like this. Get that neck back. Have the fingers out in silhouette here. Maybe slightly turn the body towards camera just a bit, so you can get this arm out just a little bit. Try to bend this arm in so she's holding the sword here, just so you get less foreshortening in the arm. Try to tilt the hips a bit this way. Got this leg here, and then maybe getting this leg here. So just slightly pushing the pose, but trying to get it a little more less foreshortening in the screen left arm, getting the screen right arm out a little bit, twisting the chest a bit.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's another pose.
I killed you.
Let's pose there. Okay. So here I would try to lean her forward just a little bit more. Right now she feels, if I was to look from the side view, she would be very straight up and down. And in your reference, she's leaning her chest out forward. So I would try to get her to be a little farther forward. Get her head to be a little bit more in line. With the neck to get us more smooth line of action. I would possibly try to bend the knee inwards. And rotate the foot inwards too. Because right now the foot's turned out and I just don't think that's working super well. And then getting this foot, you know, this is probably pushing the feet crossing just a little too much. But I think it makes a more appealing pose to have the feet a bit more crossed and having the knees turned in like that. Left knee to the right, right knee to the left. And then really try to push the shoulders. So getting this shoulder. I'd go ahead and try to push this arm out this way. I don't like that it's squashed in and her wrist is super bent and it's like broken almost. So try to get that out this way. And that's also going to push the pose in one direction. So if you have the right arm in like this and this arm in like that, it really doesn't push the body in any certain direction. But if this arm's like this arm's like this, then you have a directionality to the body, right? So this one's coming out, this one's coming in, maybe drop the shoulder just to push that out, get this out like here, and then you get that nice like hand pose. I think that makes a more appealing pose, really getting her out and forward, as opposed to keeping her very stiff and straight and having both arms like squashed in like that.
That's right. That's right.
So here I would really try to push the pose. I think you're pretty much there with the hips. I think they need to be a little more up in this angle. And then I would really try to push this part. Of how she's flexing with the hips and the abs first and then rotating forward. Is my video cutting out? I have been having internet issues all day, so if my video or audio's cutting out, could somebody let me know in the chat? Can you guys see and hear me all right? Let me just type in the chat. Okay, we're all good. I wasn't cutting out. Cool. I just wanted to make sure because I have been having internet issues all day, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting out. So, in that case, we'll just continue on. Again, really trying to get this line in the body a really. Again, with everything subtle, broad, pushed, you're always gonna have lines, and lines are always gonna be leading your pose in a direction. So what I mean by that is if I'm leading with the hips, at some point, my hips are going to be farther than everything else. And so you can infer directionality, you can infer force with leading edges. And so the way one of my teachers put it, think of it as, think of force, think of motion, think of movement as like a water hose, right? If you have a line like this, water cannot freely flow through this hard edge, and so there's going to be no movement. That's why squares, boxes, hard lines are static. And so if you want to show motion, movement, fluidity, dynamicism, force, you're going to want smooth, clear lines. So for example, this kind of a line, it's moving in this direction because this is the leading edge, and it's moving with force because everything is smooth and water. If it was a water hose, water would be running perfectly, very quickly, all the way through that line. If you had this and then a line here, well, then you've killed the force, and that's not a very dynamic moving line, if that makes sense. And so with everything, try to show leading lines and moving edges. So she's leading with the underside of her chest, and so that's the leading line. That's why I'm trying to get that out there to show like she laughs and she leads with the underside of her chest, so that line should be leading. and then getting the neck back there, because if the neck is in front, then she's not leading with the lower chest, or her neck and her head are slowing down the force of that laugh, in which case it would kind of like hurt her neck for one, but also break up the action. So try to get a nice clean line going all the way back. So you try to get the head. And again, you can always tone down how much I'm pushing this, but the principles should always stay the same. The principles of having the whole line, the only difference would be instead of this pushed line like I have, you would just tone it down. And you can tone it down as small as you want, but the principles that I'm saying here are going to be the same no matter what. So then trying to get that hand, I like the hand pose she has in her reference, so I'd try to keep that more turned out to the side. I think that's really cool. I might, though, try to push it out like this. Something along those lines. And again, do what you need to, what you have to rotate her hand upwards and get a nice bend in her arm and move that sword. And that's going to bring me into another quick demo that I'm going to show before I move on with the critique, because I'm noticing it all the way through your shot that when you're doing a constraint, the hand is planting straight onto the sword and it's moving 1-to-1. Anytime we hold something, there's going to be movement left to right, forward, backwards. You're going to have movement all the way around. And so I'm just going to show a quick like 2-minute thing that you'll need to do that's going to allow you to move your hand around while also staying constrained. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up. Yes, so I can show you how to do that. Pull up Maya. Okay, so we've got Aya here. Y'all should be able to see Maya okay. And I'm just going to open up this box. I'm going to switch this hand to IK. So I assume you're using IK because that's what's following. And so if you just constrain this straight to the sword, it's going to move 1-to-1. So let's say this is our sword. I'm just going to scale it up. Super beautiful. Parent, child, constrain parent. So as you can see, if I move this around, it moves 1-to-1. I can move this over here, I can rotate it, whatever, but as soon as I grab this and move it, it snaps back because it is constrained. So this is a quick, easy fix. This is not the way I recommend. I typically recommend doing a parent hierarchy, but that's more than I'm going to go into here, and there are a ton of videos online or on the AM campus or other places you can find it, so I'm not going to go into that because if you need to, if you want, you can message me in the Discord and I'll find you a demo for that because I know there's a bunch out there. But the quick, easy way that I do with this rig is there is a gimbal control underneath, and this will allow you to rotate, move, translate, whatever you need to the hand while the main parent is still constrained. So if I have a key here, and the sword's over here, and then the sword moves over here, and I don't want the wrist to be broken the whole way through, I'm going to set a key here, I'm going to rotate the hand, I'm going to get it in the right position so that it looks good, but it's also still moving with. And then here, oh, it's broken again. So then I'm going to set a key, and I'm going to move it over here. That way I get still a nice hand pose, And now it's constrained, but the hand is also moving with. So that's just a quick and dirty demo of how I would do that. I would suggest doing that. If you can, watch a more in-depth tutorial on constraints so that you can do it with a proper hierarchy. But I noticed it all the way through your shot. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. There we go. Noticed it all the way through your shot, like here. I would like a better hand pose here. And this will just require you taking that gimbal control and translating and rotating it into a nice wrist pose. So that there, here, like rotating it all the way around through all of these poses. And so another thing you're going to notice within your reference is she laughs, but she doesn't laugh forward, right? As her head and her neck are going forward, her body's countering and going back. So it's just like a laughing motion, but it doesn't move forward or backwards. So as you go into this pose, just keep that in mind, that you're trying to keep her body relatively between this pose and not making it go forward and then backwards, because that will be way too exaggerated of a laughing motion. But here I'd try to push the angle of the hips. She's got her leg out like here. Getting a little more appealing of leg poses. Again, right now you have her straight up and down over her body. She's holding this sword. She's got her head and her feet are relatively within the same line, but she curves to the left of that line. So that's what I'm going to try and get here. And so
Thank you.
Getting this nice tilted I can't draw perspective, but I'm going to try. Get rid of that. Try to get the body. Obviously, her torso cuts in super far, but the essence of this pose will still stand true. Trying to get this kind of a line, more tilt. Again, getting this arm around like this, like I have here. Trying to get this hand out like this, I think, is super appealing and super nice. And I think it transitions well into this pose. So I would try to really push this pose a lot. This neck in. And again, really try to match this head pose. I can't draw it to save my life because I can't draw. But, you know, something along these lines with a matched head pose is going to transition really nicely into this pose. Because you're taking the leading line, which is the hips of her basically being in this kind of a pose, to this pose where she's leading with that chest. Boom, boom. So as she's walking, she's going from leading with the hips to leading with the chest, which is a really nice transition. Boom, boom.
Your master. With your own sword, no less. Your master. With your
Here, I really like what she's doing with her reference again, of She's tilting more to the right. And so I would try to get the hips. They tilt backwards just a little bit, but they also tilt down. So something along these lines. And then I'm going to try to rotate the chest towards screen right like she has. So you're going to get something along these lines. Getting that knee bent in. Again, that's going to follow in with what I said here of getting that foot rotated inwards instead of outwards is going to make a whole lot more appealing pose here. Getting this in here. This isn't a great drawing, especially in the torso, but it looked good in my head. But getting the torso tilted this way and getting a nice clean line, that's more like it. But getting her torso facing screen right instead of screen left. And again, I probably drew the hips a little bit too facing screen left as well. I think the whole thing could be opened up more. Probably just going to redraw this whole pose because I think I could do it better. At least the upper half. And I'm also trying, because again, what you're doing here is you're having her straight up and down. And in the reference, she's leaning a lot screen right. So I would try to get her hips, not hips, her chest more over this area. Hips are more like this. Her arm is out like here. And this is a lot more clear drawing where her head is. There. So something along these lines. So she goes from leaning to her left, from her left side to now on her right side, which this pose is still not great, but I'm not great at drawing perspective, and this is a hard perspective. So hopefully you can take the essence of this pose of what I'm going for.
With your own sword, no less.
And that will help you here. Again, turning this leg in. Really getting the body out this way. And then tilting the head in is really going to get you a nice both silhouette, and it's also going to clear out this arm here. And then you can get this nice straight with this arm if you can. If not, you can get a little bend in there and it'll be fine. But really getting this line of action in there is going to be really nice.
Sword, no less.
I love what she does here where she throws her chest and her entire upper body. She throws it left as she rips that out. That is really nice, and I would love to see you get that in there. I also want to see you get this pose as well, because this is a super dynamic pose. So again, Getting this here. There's the chest. It's the hips. Getting this foot somewhere around here. Really raising the shoulder. Getting the sword here. And you can honestly have the arm inside here. I like that better. And it's not going to matter because of color contrast. Because her skin is a different color than her pants and her shirt, it still works within silhouette. Because it's different color skin on it's tan, very light colored, almost white skin on top of a red and gray surface, so the silhouette would still be fine. And then really pushing this neck and this head to fit within this line. Boom. So you get this really nice, like, from here whoosh, to there, and you really get those nice. So, like, another thing to keep in mind with my poses is they don't look great, but if you watch them in speed from one to the other, the motion feels good. And that's what I focus on when I do my posing, is making sure you have your basics of your posing, of not twinning, making sure just different stylistic things that you'll find with your eye that work well, of like keeping different lines, principles of gesture drawing, and then just finding out how they move well in motion. So like from here to here, my drawings don't look great, but the feeling between the two poses feels good. And then again here, really try to get this arm up higher, and then try to get the hand here by dropping the shoulder and getting that elbow lower along these lines. It's just gonna make a much nicer line, and then you can turn this head this way. And get a nice like pose right there. Yeah.
And now I'm gonna kill you too.
And again here, same with what I was talking about earlier. Make sure you get the hand like she has in the ref out like this. Make sure her hand is more like this, because that's really going to make a massive difference and is super, super important. Also make sure that you turn the leg in and get the foot up, because that's going to add a lot to the character of how she picks her legs up, how far she tilts inwards. And then getting her neck backwards and getting the head more about here, just to really get that pose in.
You too.
Try to turn the chest in this way. Get really nice contrast to the hips being this way. Then you can really like try to translate and also rotate the shoulder up. Get the hand, again, out this way. Get that sword here. Have this shoulder lower. Have the arm more here. And possibly even push it like this past what her reference is, just so you get like this nice contrast of this strong grip up here, but then this nice dainty like spread fingers there. And then I think your neck and your head is pretty good here. Just having what you have here is pretty nice. But yeah, really just like you're 80% there with most of your poses. It's just pushing them and getting the chest and the hip lines and everything between those out or this way, so you're not just straight up and down. Because one issue that I'm seeing in the body mechanics section and the acting section of all your poses is if you're talking about like a man who's here, like these are his two legs, you have almost the essence of the pose of like a little tilt with like the head here. That man has really long legs. But you have the essence there, but instead of doing this, you need to rotate the hips this way, rotate these more, have the head in the same place, but then you've added way more contrapposta, and then getting this knee in. So, you know, it's the difference between a pose that's almost straight up and down and a pose that's more curved. And you just really need to play with that, play with the rotate Y, X, and Z, because all of those things will take your pose from this to this, of just having more rotation in both the hips and the chest. Here, I think you can push this quite a bit. Just by throwing your shoulders up, tilting this down. I mean, almost what you have in your reference to an extent. Obviously, we're taking this to a 10, but really throw those shoulders up there. Here's the sword. He's holding it. Tilt that head down into his chest. Right? Because if he goes, and like screams, right? How can we contrast that with the pose before it to get the most out of this motion, right? So if he throws those shoulders down, the pose before it, shove those shoulders as high as you can. That way he can throw them down further, because it's all about range of motion. And the more motion you get from here to here, within reason, the more angry, the more intense he's going to be. So if he goes here, and he goes, that's not that much. But if he goes here, you really throw in much more range of motion, and you really take that to a 10. So really throw those shoulders up. Get that chin down, because that chin's going to come up and forward. And get that breath in. So if there's any way you can get, you know, a puff in on the chest, I don't think Jules has that, unfortunately. Really get him up. That way when he goes down, really throw those shoulders. And again, his arm is here on the way up, so make it like this on the way down. And try to maybe even, if you have it in camera, turn the palms out like, if you can. And then really try to jut out his neck. Get it way out here. Because if he goes, ah, and throws that neck out, that's going to be more intense. So something along these lines of here to here. Boom. Boom. That just adds way more contrast, way more compression or extension and compression, right? And if you can, get that sword out there. Boom. So yeah, those would be my main notes for the first section. Really just trying to push your poses. That's what I'm focusing on right now. And I think you'll be in a great spot. So that's my notes for this section. And I will move on to Sanjana's. Also, just to note, if I do keep cutting in and out, I do have a recording on my PC version, and I will upload that version to YouTube. So even if this one goes out, the one on YouTube will be clear, because it's just my internet. So let's check out Sanjana's. Is Sanjana here today?
Wow. No wonder people work.
Hello.
What am I going to do with all this money?
Nice. Loads of improvements this week. Loads of improvements. It's really nice seeing what it was last week and what it is this week. So it's really coming along.
Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money? Wow.
So this is just a quick note on trying to keep things a little more consistent of right now your body is doing one thing. I think the hand is doing another. So right now she's going like breathing out, going down like, no wonder people work. And so what I would try to do is right now, it feels like the hand gesture is way too big for what the body's doing. And so I would either tone down the hand just a bit, or I'd try to tone up the body a little bit more. So when she goes like, and really like swings that hand in, her body comes down and her breath out, her chest goes down a little bit more. I would at least try to like if nothing else, push the shoulders up. And then when she does that, try to push the shoulders down a bit more. Just so she's like, at least like, and like the shoulder action at least reflects the energy that the hand's doing, even if you don't do the rest of the body. But I could even see like, when she goes on, like doing much more of an overshoot, like right here you're doing like an overshoot down and then it settles back up. Like I could see you even like rotating the chest in a bit more. here. And then going back up to where you have it here. Of just like getting more like, instead of like, you know, just exaggerating that motion. And like, jutting that neck out. Because that's what you do in your reference. I really like, you're like, and you like go like right, left, like, and your head neck goes out and your head goes like, and I really like that, and that would also help represent or stay consistent with the energy in the hand. So I would try like here on this pose. You know, obviously remember this note, but I'm going to delete it because it's getting in the way. But trying to get the neck out a bit. So if the head is in this pose here, and it's in this pose here, turn on my tracing paper. So here I would try to get the head somewhere around here. This is obviously too much, but I want to get that like, of like overshoot and settle back. So overshoot and settle back. That's what I'm going to try and get. Don't do it this far, but I'm sure you get what I mean.
Wow. Wow. No wonder people work. Wow. Wow. No wonder. No wonder people work. Wow. Oh.
Here, I think you're holding this U shape for too long, so it's like, wow. No wonder people work. So right now you're holding like, wow. No wonder people work, and you just hold that for the whole time. I'd like to go into like a smile here of like, you know, maybe the cheek, like this is probably super pushed, but you know, a smile somewhat like
Wow. No wonder people work. What do you love me?
this. Basically this pose
Wow.
here, but the mouth's a little bit open, so it's like, wow. No wonder people work. So like try to get a smile. Sup, Connor? Smile here. That way she's not just stuck in this U shape the whole time.
Oh. No wonder people work. No.
And she would probably stay in more of a smile right here. And then she'd go into something like this for the O. So like, wow, no wonder. So that way she stays in the smile until she hits no wonder people work.
No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money?
I'm sure you're probably working on it, but I'm just going to point it out right now. I would assume this is the correct arm pose for where the doorknob is that she's holding on to. And just like watch out for here whenever it's popping out. Try to keep it on the doorknob the whole time. Until... honestly, probably here, I would imagine, would be like the farthest out that it would be. So like arms holding the handle here. And then I would probably hit this pose on this frame. So 1, 2, 2 frames later. Boom. And then I would probably have a frame where it swings a little bit behind. And then probably hits this pose about here. So if I ghost this. So something like that, if you can watch it like swing around. Boom, boom. And then your arm would come out here on this frame. And then it would come here where you have it. So adding in-betweens this week to hit these, but also changing where you have some stuff. I think that's just going to make this feel a lot nicer. Like whoosh, whoosh like that. Another thing I'd probably try to do is get some contrast with the rotate Y of the glass. Because it's a glass and like I have one here with water in it, I'm not going to want to tilt it this way, or this way. But I can rotate it this way without spilling it, right? So even though you have to keep it pretty much locked rotationally like these ways for like this fast move, try to drag it in Y. So it's like, and like rotate it out that way. So you have it here where you've got your hand and you got the thumb here. Try to keep the hand more rotated this way a little bit. And then get it a little more out this way. And this one, you'll just have it a little more here. So the glass would probably be a little more over here. That way you just go like, and you'll probably overshoot and settle the glass a little bit. So it's like, and you'll overshoot it and settle it just a little bit. So if it's over here, by this frame, it's exactly where you have it. So just getting some overshoots and settles in this next week of blocking is going to be really nice. And then for this pose here, I love the way the pose is turning out. I would try just for contrast purposes. trying to get the shoulders a little bit lower. That way when you go this huge breath. Let me go turn on ghosting just so I can see like. Obviously, this is going to be exaggerated, but you get this nice, like, suck in of the chest, go from here to here. So, obviously, this is exaggerated, and you're not going to get this, like, squash in of, like, this middle part on this rig, but really trying to get. And she, like, raises her shoulders, like, really trying to, like, get that nice, like, chest upwards.
Wow.
Is gonna be nice.
Wow. Wow.
And then trying to get some sort of head movement. I know you're trying to like hold this pose of like, wow. And it's a little bit different than your reference, but I do like that in your reference, it's such a big move that she moves her head with it. So you don't have to do exactly this, even though I think this works really nicely of getting like the head here, getting those big eyes, getting this nice like pushed like ooh expression, which this is a terrible drawing, but you're welcome for this extremely cursed drawing that I just gave you. But aside from the creepiness of this drawing, hopefully you get the idea of like, I really like what you have in your reference of like, wow, of like turning the head. So if you can get that, I think you can hit just as nice a, you can keep just as nice a pose just with also turning the head here. So boom, boom. And I think that would work better. But if you don't want to turn it, just try to get some sort of movement of like, or like, just like even just tilting up slightly, like, wow. So just like tilting the head right now, it just feels so dead on the head rotations of like try to get like, or wow, just so that you can get some more motion within that like super pushed head expression.
Wow. No wonder. Wow. 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 Wow.
And so obviously most people don't think about their arcs or their spacing and blocking, they wait for spline, but I find if you keep track of the arcs of important things in blocking, it saves you so much time and heartache in spline, because if the arcs are busted enough, you're going to have to reblock certain things just so that your arcs and stuff work. And so the main thing I'm watching is if I check the arc of this chin here, the energy dies right there. So if I track it, boom, so this is like 3 frames, 2 frames, 3 frames, 4 frames. So it's like, it goes like, wow, and it doesn't really carry over. So I'm guessing it's a pretty straightforward, like, wow. Like, it's pretty straightforward, nice arc. I don't think you have to do anything special with it. So here, just try to get the chin out here and get the line of the head out this way. here. Boom. That way you get the line here. And try to tilt the head just slightly more on this frame. That way when you get to here, maybe you can push the neck a little bit more and get this exact same head pose out here. And then you get something like this.
Wow.
So if I turn on hold frames, turn on tracing frame.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that just feels a lot better.
Wow.
I think that just feels a lot better, like, wow. And it gets you a nice cleaner arc, because right now it just feels like it dies. So I'd try to do that there. And then...
No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money? No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with all this money? No wonder people work. What am I gonna do with what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do with all this money? What am I gonna do with all this money? Work. What am I gonna do with all this money? What am I gonna do with all this money?
Watch out for things like this here. If I look at these poses here, it almost feels like this section, like the right chest area, is pinned in place through these poses. Do you see how, like, it doesn't look like they're moving and it's like pixel locked and everything else is moving, rotating around there? I would try to possibly cut, I'm not sure how you're rotating the body, but cut down on the side to side rotation of the body, just so you get a little more side to side translation as she walks. Because she's walking screen left, right? And I like the amount that her hips are going left, but because you're counter rotating her so hard to the right, that it's almost keeping her upper body in place. And then the same as her hips travel right, it's almost keeping her body, upper body, perfectly in place because you're counter rotating. So I would possibly try to cut down on the rotations and up the translations a little bit. And then another thing I would also suggest, because things seem a little bit hitchy through this section, take the cog, which is what you should be translating with, flip it to spline, and just watch the path that she goes through here. Because it's a walk, and you've done walk cycles before in classes 2 and classes 1, you should be fairly familiar with, like, you know, what the hip should do. It should be fairly linear going forward. It should ease on the left side. It should ease on the right side, like all those things. Flipping it to spline, you're going to see issues, you're going to see hitches, and you're going to be able to delete them, fix them, kind of almost pre-spline, but only doing it on your key poses that you have blocked in, and then flip it back to stepped mode. Just so you know that when you hit spline, a bunch of issues were fixed before you added in any in-betweens. And then you can go in and add those in-betweens, and you can flip it to spline again, clean it up, flip it back to stepped. I'm constantly, well, at this point, I barely block in stepped anymore. Sometimes there's some things that I do like using stepped, but most of the time I'm blocking in spline. But it's really hard to see that way. So I would suggest doing this way of keeping it in stepped, but for things like this, where you want to see the motion, flip it to spline, clean it up, make sure you don't break your poses while you're doing it, and then flip it back to step and add more in-betweens.
What am I gonna do with all this money?
Also here, I would try to add, again, when she breathes in, which probably going with this kind of a pose, but try to expand the face when she breathes in. So that's an important storytelling beat. I would try to go ahead and block that in for this week of like expanding the face when she goes like,
Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work. What am I going to do with all this money? Wow. No. Wow.
here I might try, this may be a little too early to add it in, but I think you're in a pretty good spot. Try translating the torso, like the top spine, or if you're, I'm not sure if you're using IK or FK spine. Are you using IK or FK? For clarity, IK would be the one that you have one on the top, one on the bottom. FK is the one where you have 4 all the way up. And if you're not here at the moment, I'm just going to say if you're using IK or FK, I would try to translate up the torso a little bit here, which would also push this head pose, so make sure you push that one up as well. But try to translate up here. That way you're going to go to normal here, where you're at now. But then here you can start to compress, which is also going to push this head pose down, so keep an eye out for that. And then here you're probably going to compress even farther. And then you're going to hit back at normal. So obviously this is exaggerated.
Wow.
How much you're going to push it.
Wow.
And I would probably hit normal here earlier than I said. But
Wow.
that's just going to keep the spine feeling more alive of like, wow. Of like really squashing the chest down. Okay, IK, cool. In that case, then you can just push it down farther. So that'll make life easier for you.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. Wow.
Now that I'm watching it, you might go full by this pose.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's better. So going back to normal at 89-ish area.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's good.
What am I going to do with all this money? Wow. No wonder people work.
But yeah, I think that's my main notes. If you have any questions or anything on that, and yes, the yellow ones would be IK. So if you have any questions or anything, I'll leave it open for a few minutes, but if not, I'll go ahead and move on to Canes. And if not, I'll go ahead and switch over and start looking at Kane's shot. Alright, let's take a look.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good...
I think that's... Yeah, that is not the latest pass. Let me watch this one.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
How to approach lip sync? For your first class 4 assignment, I'd try to really focus on the phonemes and hitting the proper phonemes, which I'm pretty sure you're in Ray Ross's class, right? Which he will go over which are the most important phonemes to hit, which are the next, and which are the ones that just go in between whatever you have. So he'll set you up nice on those. But one thing I would do for a test, just to warm yourself up to lip sync, is take just a random piece of dialogue. Take maybe 30 minutes to an hour to do this, but take a random character, random piece of dialogue, and just animate the jaw as a Muppet pass to the dialogue. And just feel out what your mouth is doing, like hello. And so it's like open, close, or what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And just feel out what the jaw's doing and just animate the jaw to that piece of dialogue. And get it to try to read, because that's 80% of the battle, is getting the jaw to read what the words are saying. Phonemes are kind of hit or miss on how important they are, like I said before. Like your M's, B's, and P's, those are the most important, because you can't say a P, a B, or an M without closing your lips. So you have to hold that for a minimum of 2 frames. Other phonemes, it all depends on your mood. Like there's other ones too, like T and stuff like that, but like there's quite a few phonemes that are only like based, the shape and all that are based upon how loud you're talking, what your mood is, if you're happy, sad. Like mouth corners are for expression, the middle of the mouth is for pronunciation and stuff like that. So the jaw pass is really going to make a massive difference, because you can say, what are you doing? And it just opens up a little bit, or what are you doing? And it's going to make a big difference on what kind of mouth shape you make, because you're either opening your jaw really large or really small. So if you use like a phoneme library, they're all the same size, the jaw's all the same, and so you're going to get this really vanilla, really broken lip sync, because you're going to watch it through and everything's going to be popping, it's not going to be working well. If you do the jaw pass first, which is my workflow, which doesn't work for everyone, but my workflow is open up the lips, mute those channels, because I have keys on it just so they stay open so I can see the teeth and the jaw, and just animate the jaw. And once the jaw reads, then I go through and then I make my phonemes based on how big the jaw is. Because if I just go through and try to make these phonemes, I'm going to end up having to break those phonemes to make the jaw work, and then animate the phonemes again. So I would suggest doing it as a test first, like I said. And then if you like it, if it's working for you, try to incorporate, or at least think about what the jaw's doing when you're making your phonemes, because it will save you so much time. So hopefully that helps. And then let me watch this again.
There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't.
Just something small here. What would look good? Probably black. Nope. I would try to drag the fingers just a little bit when he's like, "You are done." Just try to infer a little bit of drag in the fingers here. This is obviously a really small note. But if you're, exactly where you're at here, boom, Here, just try to drag just a bit. This is probably too much. And then go back to normal.
All done.
So like obviously
All done.
this is way too much.
All done.
But just a little bit of like you are done. And just like drag those fingers just a little bit on the way up.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen.
What hit away?
Watch out. Ah, no problem. Watch out here. Right now he's like, only one hit away. And like the body and the head are all rotating as the same. I would try to either go one hit away and like drag the head or lead with it one hit away, which I think dragging would be the best option. So if his head is here, let me ghost this. I would try to keep the head within this line. Keep it more like here. And then going into this. Let's unghost.
One hit away.
Listen.
So this is probably a little bit exaggerated, but just trying to break it up one hit away and like getting a little bit of drag. That way it's not just one hit away and it's like moving all one to one.
One hit away.
Listen. Shaking Stevens, you missed. Listen. Shaking Stevens, you. Listen. Shaking Stevens, you. Listen. Shaking Stevens. Listen. Shaking Stevens, you.
I would also try to speed up this bit on the Grim Reaper character, because the guy goes, listen, Shakin' Stevens, and like stands up and gets super aggressive, and it feels a little bit flat. I'd love to punch up the timing a lot on the other character, because right now he stands up and says, listen, and the character goes like just slowly back. So it's like, listen, and he like pushes his finger and he goes like that. So I'd love to get like, oh, like speed it up just a lot. That way whenever he pushes, like, listen.
Shaking Stevens.
What am I gonna do with this money?
Whenever he pushes,
Shaking Stevens, you.
like he just goes back a lot faster, if that makes sense.
Shaking Stevens, you.
So here, push, overlord, back faster.
Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. Twice. You missed twice. You missed.
For the eye dart here, this is the eyes are moving down in I think 5 frames. I would try to pump that up. The longest I'm ever gonna have a character move their eyes, even if it's from the all the way left to all the way right, the longest it's gonna take is 4 frames. So if I'm thinking about an eye, let's say this is the start pose, this is the end pose. Frame 1 will be here, frame 4 will be here. Frame 2 will be 80% of the first pose. Frame 3 will be 80% of the last pose. So this is the longest I'm gonna have an eye dart, or an eye move, really. If this is 3 frames, I'm gonna have frame 1, this is frame 3, and then frame 2 is gonna be 80% of that third pose. And then for a 2 frame boom, boom. But I'm rarely ever going to do a 2-frame eye dart. It's typically going to be 3 frames. So these are the only 2 eye darts I do 90% of the time. Sometimes I'll do more, sometimes I'll do less, but it's very rarely ever. And if that doesn't look good, I'm going to incorporate a blink, because blinks always make eye darts, big eye moves, look more natural than without. And in a lot of live action reference, if you're just following it and you're just moving your eyes down, it can look very odd, because there's a lot of things in rigs that aren't in rigs that we have, of like muscle and fleshiness of things moving and things looking normal, that you can't get in a rig. So sometimes if you're having a character look down or up or right or left and it just doesn't feel right, try putting a blink in there. Because typically whenever you look or you move your eye, you'll blink anyway. So you can add that in, and sometimes it makes things feel a lot nicer. So like this, for me, this would be your hit frame. This would be your 80% frame. This frame here would be your 20% frame, and this would be the exact same as this, like this frame. So just cut out a bunch of frames on this eye looking down, and possibly add a blink.
Twice. Twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota. You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only 1 hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You...
I like the hat.
There's no clearer way I can...
I like the little hat drift down that you
I
added
can
in.
say this. You are done. I can say this. You are done. I can say this. You are done.
I would try to punch up this head move here. No clear way I could say this. You are done. Like, are done. And like punch that sentence, that what he's saying there, of like, you are done. Right? So right now you're kind of doing it, I think, a bit too early, of like, you are done. And it's kind of a little bit like floaty, and I can see there's a couple hitches in there.
I can say this. You are done.
So if he says are done and he hits this here, or he could go, you are done.
All done. Done. All done. All done. All done.
So it's not showing great in the drawings, but I would either try to delay or lead with the head a little bit more here. So it either goes, you are done, right? Or he goes, you are done, right? I think done is a little more impactful. So you are done, right? I think that's a little more impactful, but you could also go, you are done, right? Just trying to break that up, because right now
You are done. All done.
it's a little bit soft, and also try to clean up the hitching here, because I can see it's like are done, and it's like a little bit hitchy in there with either the neck or the
All done.
head rotation.
You can't fire. You can't fire me.
You haven't made.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm. You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota. Quota.
But I'm.
Again here, just trying to spice up the timing a little bit of like, you haven't made up your quota. Instead of your quota. Like it feels a little soft, so holding him down just a little bit longer, haven't made up your quota. I think feels nice of like spicing up a little bit the timing over here.
Quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You have.
Another thing with this guy's lip sync. I'd try to possibly, because you're going into this smile here. This feels like a lot, so going from here to here, I might go ahead and make the M a little more shallow. That way it's not such a huge change from here to here. And then here, try to make the M me and try to arc around. So if you, here, and then here, and then here. So this might look good, it might look like trash.
Fire me.
You haven't.
Yeah,
Fire me.
You haven't.
that's what I'm, this may be too quick, but you can see what I mean of like, fire me, and like you circle the corners, so they go like, fire me, and you go like me, and you circle those mouth corners, because right now it just feels like, you can't fire me, and it just feels really weird that he goes from this to this, just like straight up. So try to curve it around, and that go frown to smile will feel a lot more natural.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen,
Hit away.
listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed Talking Stevens. You missed twice. You missed twice. You've had a good run twice.
I'm missing. Okay, so you'll be sticking with a smile with this guy through the whole thing. If so, that'll fix that issue as well. So, another thing I'm noticing is the lip sync overall feels really nice and reads,
As of now,
except for
you missed twice. You
here. So right now, I'm getting the nice U shape, but right now he's hitting a V. And so from this angle, I just try to get the lip out. You have the teeth here. And then I'd try to get like the under lip, you know, your typical FV pose, I'd try to get that here and just curl that underlip underneath some teeth and pull up that lip high enough so that you can see the teeth. So you get that like, you've missed. Okay, no. Just shot through.
I'm only one hit away.
Cool. Yeah, that works. So I would hold this for 2 frames. So here and here, I would hold that V. And so here, I would have the jaw more compressed as well. And then here's when you start to open it up because you've had. And then here, it would open up just a little bit more. And then it would start to close. And then it would stay a little bit more closed here. And then it would open back up. So it's, you've had good, right? So it's add good, right? So you want to open it up on the second good, so you can close it for good. And close it. So obviously these are not great. I'm just drawing the line above his chin if it needs to go closed, or below his chin if it needs to open more. That way you kind of have an example, but this isn't exactly where I want you to put the chin. I'm just showing you, so it's like, you've had good, right? Had good. And that will make this section read, because it's about the little open and downs that are very quick, so you have to be very conscious of where you're opening and closing, because you can get into places where you open it for too long and then it closes and it opens back over one frame, which doesn't really work. Or it's too swimmy. So be careful with it, but try to do what I'm saying here of like, had a good run.
You've had a good run.
So keeping it closed here. Doing a little asymmetry here, keeping this up, but also keeping the jaw more open here. So right now, this is the peak it's down. I'd try to extend that one more frame. And just really using this frame to this frame as a cushioning frame. So you hit like 90% jaw closed and then 100% jaw closed. So this would probably be a little more open. So that way you go like run and it closes very quick.
But as of now,
So here, you're already in a perfect mouth pose here for the now. But right here, you're hitting a V. So literally just grab that lower lip and bring it up here. So this here, maybe it's a little tiny bit higher, and then it goes there, and then it goes there. So that literally just moving the lip up right here over one frame is going to make this read a lot better.
as of now, you're done.
Here, I would like to just infer a little bit of an E shape before you go into your, which this is nice. I like this a lot. but I would try to... This is nice here. I would just like to open up with the lips a little bit before going into the ooh. That way it's like, you're done, instead of, oh, done. Like, I'm watching it, I'm just hearing like, you're done. I'm not hearing like, you're done. So I would just try to infer a little bit of an E as the mouth comes open into that ooh. Just make the outer corners come open first, just to get a bit of an E right just there at the beginning,
done,
which is very subtle.
done.
And this might be the farthest open. I keep the jaw. That way you can close it just a bit on this frame. That way you can really pop it open. You're done. Right?
Done.
Because he kind of pops it a little bit of, you're done. So just try to like pop that jaw open just a little bit. Done.
Done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, twice. You
I would try to remove out this
twice.
complex brow shape here. I would either go, you've missed twice, or going into it earlier, you've missed twice, right? That's probably what I would do. So go ahead and hit, I would try to hit 1306. This eyebrow shape here. Because right now it just feels weird that it comes
Twice.
up and then down and then down. It's almost stair-steppy. So just try to hit that earlier, right?
You've had a good run, but as of you've had a good run, but as
These are here. Try to bring them in just a bit as they come up. That way they can come back out.
but as of now,
That way you're just arcing them as they come upwards.
you're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one. But I'm only.
Watch out for the eyebrows here. The left one's hitting a bit early and then popping down, and then the right one's kind of drifting up afterwards. So if you're hitting this pose as a final pose, I'm going to try to draw this at the risk of looking like an idiot.
Your quota.
But I'm.
Quota.
Okay, so here, if I this, do this.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one.
Right. So just do a straight overshoot and settle on the eyebrows instead of rolling them. Just try. You haven't made up your quota, right? So just like quota, right? So just like overshoot and settle as a whole. And then once you've overshot and settled the eyebrows as a whole, try to arc in the inner eyelids, because that's going to make it feel just a lot more connected, and it'll make the eye mask feel better, because it typically you can't like roll your eyelids in a natural expression unless you're like really trying to do it. So
Haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. Twice. Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. And you did twice.
also watch out for the elbow here.
Missed twice.
It pops right there if you can see it. From 298 to 307. The elbow's popping around.
You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no... You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clear way up.
And so this is where I'm going to show a little demo that I'm going to cheat, because I was going to show this a full-fledged demo later. But this is kind of an easy way. Let me open up. There we go. This is like an easy way to clean up elbow and or knee pops. And so if you have a character, let me go ahead and delete this. Let me go ahead and turn this to 0. Let's go ahead and 0 this out. Select the body. There we go. So it's totally zeroed out. So typically elbow pops happen. What did I do? 0 this out. Typically elbow pops happen whenever you have stretching and not quickly. Like the elbow's going to pop or the knee is going to pop. So I'm just going to set some quick keyframes just so I get nice quick elbow popping. Might be better if I actually showed this within a shot. I'm trying to think if I have a shot like this. Actually, yes, I do. So I'm going to open up a shot real quick. Give me 1 second here. Let me go ahead and switch this to just me while I open up this shot, and then I will come back. Open it up. So this is one of the many planned demos I have for the future that I will do in longer form, but this is kind of pertinent towards your next step of like cleaning up the elbows. And for me, this saved me hours upon hours of time cleaning up legs and elbow pops. And as far as I know, I'm the only person that's ever like done it. I've never seen anybody else do this before. So hopefully it's helpful. But let me switch over here. So this is a shot I've been working on.
All I want is freedom, a world with no more night, and you always...
If you can see through this section, do you see how like the elbows popping, just like in your shot? Like here, it's like super stretched, and it goes like pop, 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 right? So if I want to clean that up, I can go in and I can just track this right here, and I can just hit track. And I'm going to go ahead and set the tracking to be limited frames. Set range. No, frames before and after. Let's go 24. So here you go. Here's the pop. So if you can see, there's a nice big pop right there. So, boom. So if I wanted to, I could go in and I can control the arm stretch, right? And I could go in and clean it up. But arm stretch really, it's long, it's tedious, and I hate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a cube, a polygon primitive, and I'm just going to create it. So I've got it. Let's just scale it up so you can see here. And I'm just going to shift select the bend bow that's at the elbow. I'm going to go modify, match transformations, match all transforms. And that's just going to snap it right to the center of the bend bow. So here we go. Now we have a cube right at the center of this bend bow. So I'm just going to set a key. I could do it with Animbot, but just in case people don't have Animbot, you can also parent, child, constrain, parent, and then use the bake function within the graph editor. That will work. But for time's sake, I'm just going to use Animbot's copy X form. And I'm just going to copy, bake all keys. And actually, I should just bake all frames because that's what I'm going to have to do anyway. So I'm just going to go bake frames, and it's just going to bake it to ones. So I'm just going to sit here for a second. So basically what I'm doing here is instead of now the bend bow representing just what is above it, the parent, which is nothing, it's totally zeroed out, I've baked that out to a cube, and a cube is in world space. So if I was to look at the graph editor, you're not going to see a pop anywhere in here. But if I click on the cube, well, I can see right here within the translates of this cube. Let me switch this to normalized. You can see the pop right here. You see that? So if I was to go in and I was just to delete this pop, boom, the pop would be gone. And I could go through and I could hit edit curve, and look at that. We have a perfectly smooth curve, no elbow pop. So that's where I'm getting to, is like, how can I make the elbow have world space curves? That way I could clean up elbow pops without having to use the stretch attribute, because the stretch attribute doesn't always work. So what I'm going to do here is, now that I have a cube right in the center, I'm going to take this elbow PV, and over one frame, let's say right here, because this is a good frame where I have what I want. I'm going to set a key. The next frame, I'm going to snap it, right? So now I have a world space elbow PV. Now I just need to get it exactly back where I wanted it, where I had it before. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the PV, I'm going to go to the cube, and I'm going to hit match all transforms. Boom, now it's right back where it was. So now I just need to take this section where the pop is and snap the PV. So I'm going to, again, over one frame, set a key here, then set this to 10, and then I'm going to shift select the cube, modify, match all transforms. Boom. So now everything in the middle on the PV, I'm going to delete. And now I'm just going to use, again, Animbot's X form to copy, paste, 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 paste. And now we're back to where it's not snapped anymore. So now I can delete the cube, and now I can select the PV. And over these frames where the elbow is snapped, I can literally clean up the graph editor and my elbow pop will be gone. So let me go ahead and, not the PV, I want to track the bend bow. Okay, here we go. So I can see the pop. So I can literally go in, select the elbow PV, select these, and just start cleaning up, right? So this is where the pop is. I'm just going to delete that. And also I'm having a graph editor issue, so let me close this real quick. Animation, graph editor. Boom, there we go. So I'm going to go into the TZ and be like, okay, so this is it. Let's just delete this. Boom. TY. Let's just delete these gross inconsistent keys. I'm going to go ahead and flip the first and last frames to linear. That way I can see the curve a little bit better. See that this is a bit high. This needs to be over here. And just start really just cleaning up the curves of this elbow. Go in here, go here. And here. Snap this to linear. Boom. Go into the TY. Delete these. And now as you can see, I have almost a perfectly smooth curve. Now I can just go in and just tweak the curve as I want it. Make sure this, oop, it's a little farther back. Make sure this one's a little farther. And then this one's a little bit more here. And there we have it. No elbow pop. So if you need to change the spacing of the chest, for example, you're going to still not have any elbow pops. So this is what I was just about to go into, is you want to make sure you do this step, the very last stage of polish. So if you're moving the chest, you're moving it, this much at most, right? You're not going to be moving the chest a ton because you've already cleaned it up, you've already polished it, you've already made sure it's 95, 98% perfect. Then you're going to go in, you're going to clean up these elbow pops. That way, if you just need to slightly move it, you're not busting your elbow pops at all. And that's the beautiful thing of this, is you can get away with a little stretching and squashing because, fleshiness, right? You can get away with just a little bit of that. So getting your chest 98% there, you can clean up all the elbow pops you want, and it's just going to be beautiful. And I do the same with leg pops. I did that with my Class 6 shot, actually, whenever I was cleaning it up after. I had probably knee pops every 5 to 10 frames. So I baked the entire shot, the pull vector to the knees, pulled the knees out just a little bit, and then just cleaned up the curves, just like I clean up any other curves. And it made a 5-6 hour task like 1 hour. Logan, again, like I probably could have used the stretch part. So the arm stretch, I probably could have animated this and cleaned up the elbow just as quickly for this one section. But if you're in a shot where you're having pops like Kane's shot, so if I'm going through here and I'm looking at all the pops you have here, like there's probably 70 pops in that arm. And to go in and track and clean up manually every single frame is going to take 4 to 5, 6 hours. And then if he has to address a note the next week from Sean on how to change the chest, he's going to have to reanimate all that stretch and squash. And it's going to be a constant battle. And every time he changes something, he's going to have to re-clean up the arm. And it's going to be very long. With this method that I just showed right here, you bake it to that pull vector, you clean it up, and it stays cleaned. And it's going to take, I think I cleaned up a 600 frame shot with roughly 100 to 150 knee pops. in about 30 minutes. So it cuts down on the time you have to clean it up by a lot. It makes it a lot cleaner, a lot simpler, and gives you way more control. Because it's a lot easier to grab a pull vector, which is right here. It's a lot easier to grab this and place it and make a nice curve than it would be to go in, grab this control, and if you do the arm stretch, it does the whole arm. If you do upper arm, it does this one. If you do the low arm, it does this one. So cleaning up arm pops are just a lot harder to do when you're using arm stretch and you're not able to manually move it as you want. Yes, I did have to tweak manually with this section right here, but it was a lot easier being able to translate within the graph editor a pull vector as opposed to layering on top a squash and stretch, which isn't always accurate, right? So if I'm going about another arm pop right here, right? This is an elbow pop right here. And if I want to clean that up the typical way, I'm going to have to go in, I'm going to have to do arm stretch, and then I'm going to have to go in and look at that. It's just popping. I'm trying to get exactly where I want it, and it's not moving. And then I have it here, and then I have to go in, and then I have to counter translate the pull vector out to fit within that curve. And it's just, in my opinion, a way slower process. Like I said, it would take me 6 hours to clean up this manually. It would take me 30 minutes to do it the way I demoed. So that's just a quick demo I was showing for Cadence Shot. Hopefully that you guys find that helpful. And let me watch this one more time. I think I got out most of my notes, but let me check just again real quick.
You're done. There's no clearer way I can say this. You are done.
You can't fire me.
You haven't made up your quota.
But I'm only one hit away.
Listen, Shaking Stevens, you missed twice. You've had a good run, but as of now, you're done. There's no clearer one now.
The only other thing I would watch out for is just right here. The cigar just popping into place and staying. So I'm sure you have something planned for that. You just haven't got to it, but I just watch out for that. But other than that, I think that's my main notes. Did you have any other questions or anything on that, Kate? Yeah, no problem, Logain. Cool. In that case, I will switch over here. Get rid of these. In that case, thank you all for coming and showing up and listening to me give some feedback. Just babbling on about different things here and there. So appreciate everybody for showing up, and tune in tomorrow for Cynthia's and Madison's on Friday. And then don't forget, we will be interviewing the great Raymond Ross Jr. on Saturday. So do not miss that. Ray's one of the best people in the world. Super fun to talk to, super personable animator that's one of the best in the world. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun, and it'll be extremely fun talking to him and picking his brain a little bit about animation. So hope you all can show up, and I will see you guys on Saturday. So see y'all.